Hello everyone and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry, a fan channel where everything Dragalia Lost can be found. It's June 1st and that means it's time for another This Month in Dragalia Lost. If you're not familiar with this, basically at the beginning of every month, the game's director, Okada, puts out a summary of what's to come in that month as far as the game goes, and also sometimes gives some snippets or previews of future updates for Dragalia Lost or things that may be planned for that month but end up getting pushed down the road. So I'm really excited to check this out with you today. That's basically going to be all we do in this video. It's kind of a new summary, but also I'll give you my impressions, what I'm most excited about, and so on. We're going to read through that, but as a reminder, with this being the first of the month, do remember you can go into your treasure trade and now you can claim your new monthly Astral Raid goodies like augments as well as the Void Battle items in the treasure trade, which there are many and they're pretty good to get. So do recall you can go in there and grab those. And if you are a player who spends money on the game, you can also buy monthly packs. The limit for those has reset now that the month has changed over. Looking at these at this point in the game, I still think these are a good value. The reason being, you're not just buying Diamantium for summoning purposes. You're getting something guaranteed out of it. So in particular, the dragon packs, getting a guaranteed dragon unbind is a pretty reasonable purchase. And same thing with these Champion's Testaments packs for mana circles. Getting those is something that tends to be pretty scarce, and so you're kind of getting something guaranteed. The other two are a little bit more nebulous. I mean, the keys here, now that you can buy all worm prints from the shop, essentially, these keys may or may not matter too much. It's kind of like just saving Eldwater or buying Eldwater. And same thing with the 5-star ingots, with 6-star weapons around and coming out, you do have to wonder the place and relevance of these 5-star ingots now. But that being said, they actually added a new monthly pack, so let's touch upon that briefly before we dive into the full This Month in Dragalia Lost. This works just like the other monthly packs, but you're getting an ingot that focuses on unbinding 6-star weapons instead of 5-star ones. And 6-star weapons are not too hard to unbind right now. Frankly, it's harder to unbind 5-star weapons, so if you care about collecting weapons and want to collect, say, the High Dragon weapons, then you might actually want the other pack. The thing with this pack is it could potentially help you in the future because we know that higher enhancements are coming to the Augieto weapons. We don't know if that means another tier or perhaps some other type of enhancements, but if it is another tier, like tier 3 weapons, they might not necessarily be as easy as the tier 2 ones are to max unbind. So in that case, I actually could see it being sort of relevant to grab some of these. And I noted that there's exactly 4 months between now and the anniversary where you could purchase this, getting a total of 4 ingots, which would be enough to max unbind a 6-star weapon. So I do think there's a possibility that Tier 2 6-star weapons, when you enhance them, they're going to make a 0 unbound Tier 3 weapon. And you might actually need to do either a lot of grinding or buy one of these packs in order to help you unbind them. Just some speculation as a possibility. I really don't think if you are just using this for the Tier 2 6-stars or Tier 1 6-stars that it's worth it at all. So it's just not that time consuming. But then again, everybody has a different value on their money depending on how much money they earn in an hour. It might be better to buy this than to actually farm up. So whatever you decide to do, that's now available just so that you're aware of it. And in fact, let's just go into the shop real quick and look at the monthly packs. Notably, you can get the Dragon Pack twice, the Key and Damascus Ingot Pack 3 times, the Mana Circles Pack 3 times, and you do get 10 Rainbow Orbs with that, which is not a lot, but it's something. And then you can only get this new 6-star pack once per month. So that's where the packs are and the treasure trade. In case you've somehow missed out on this treasure trade, you go here to Void Battles, you go to monthly, and anything with an exchange limit, I tend to just buy out at the beginning of the month. And I usually have enough Void leaves left over from the Void Endeavor week of the previous month that I'm able to do that. So I go ahead and get everything that's there. And with the Astral Raids, the only things I really consider to be worth it are the augments. So those are the only ones that I get there. Anyway, now let's actually get into This Month in Dragalia Lost. That's enough prelude. We've talked about the weapon pack change. Hello, Yuji Okada here, Director of Dragalia Lost. I want to start by thanking you for playing Dragalia Lost. He always does that. I want to say I saw it coming, but I didn't necessarily. Anyway, Time Worn Torment. The Time Worn Torment raid event is currently live. You can increase friendship with the light-attuned 5-star adventurer who appears in the event, Wukong, by adding him to your team during the event and clearing quests. If you maximize your friendship, he'll permanently join your roster. You can use items called Wukong's Conviction, which can be obtained during the event, to unlock his mana nodes and unbind his mana circles. Furthermore, in addition to dealing extra damage in recent quests during the event, he also takes reduced damage. Collect raid boosts, upgrade Wukong, and try to clear Omega difficulty. So I love that they've added the Wukong's Conviction item. I hope that we see this in every raid in the future. It's costly to level up all the characters and mana circle fully all the characters that you want to in Dragalia Lost. These characters are very appealing. You get attached to them, or maybe you want to invest in them for meta reasons, whatever the case may be. If you're somebody who cares about building your bench, then you don't have that much spare Eld Water, in my opinion. If you only focus on a few meta characters that you play repeatedly, then I've seen people who have millions of Eld Water. But as somebody who's tried to build up all my characters fairly evenly, I really appreciate the Wukong's Conviction, because this is a character I would have never considered getting to 50 nodes, if not for the fact that you can do so freely by playing the event. And I also think it's a really good boost for new players, because it's going to be a pretty powerful, decently powerful adventurer in your collection right away. So I love that change. Sad that there's no Raid Dragon. I would love to see both alongside one another. But I respect the change. I think it's probably a good thing. Now let's move on to what's below Wukong's portrait here. The Omega Level 2 raid difficulty, which was added in the previous event revival, Loyalty's Requiem, is in this event as well. Omega Level 2 raid does not have any special rewards, but it does provide a challenge, so using the High Dragon weapons or Augieto weapons is recommended. If you're confident in your skills, try taking on this quest. Also, the theme song for this event, Force Your Way, was composed by Keisuke Okada and sung by Takayoshi Tanimoto. It plays during the story and raid boss battles. I think it's a pretty cool song, so please give it a listen. I do think it's a cool song. And I seem to be alone in feeling this. I've talked to a couple other players, and nobody seems to have the same sentiment, but for some reason, I found this raid to be harder. I don't know if it's my characters hitting with less damage because I don't have that many boosts. I've really just played the bare minimum of the raid, but even things like the EX and Nightmare battles, I'm actually seeing several of the boss attacks, which wasn't always the case, and I don't know if that's actually conscious rebalancing or it's just something that I'm perceiving because of the raid boosts I happen to have gotten this time, which is to say, almost none. So yeah, I think that I don't know. I'd love to hear what you think about that. I was going to say, I think that it could be kind of interesting if they're steadily powering up the weaker difficulties, because usually they're strong enough characters to kind of carry them anyway, or people in the lobbies to carry them. And getting to see more of the fight is kind of interesting when you're a newer player. I do think that with Aspidoce alone, the turtle boss that was a light Fraganoth during the 1.5 year anniversary, that boss just got decimated in 1 second, 0 seconds. The timer couldn't even go to 1, and sometimes it was at 0. It's that was really sad and kind of pitiful. This boss, I felt like those meteors knock me down, or he'll charge up some of his weak points across the map, and then you have to kind of scatter around. Or he'll do a move where he forms a purple circle and a red circle, and you need to retreat away from him to stand in the red, but also you would need to iframe or roll successfully within the red. Iframe using a skill if you want to protect your whole team. So there's a lot of moves here that require, at least to my mind, it requires a certain amount of reflexes. Now, having said that, I'm sure if you put the chocolatiers on all your characters, it's probably easier, and I'm probably going to start doing that. But I did find it to be kind of challenging. It felt pretty satisfying so far, so I'm very curious to see what happens with Omega Level 2. Okay, so next up, Gala Regalia. This is also kind of more of a recap than something new, but there will be something new at the end here. So a Gala Dragalia is live now, in addition to Gala Leaf, the new dragon Tieshan Gongshu, and adventurers Radiant Xuanzang, Zhu Bajie, and Xiao Wujing, who appear in the current events, have also been added to the Summon Showcase. Love this picture of everybody here. Kind of sad that Wukong doesn't get to appear in the picture, but obviously he's not in the banner. And Gala Leaf, we know his pose, his stance is very interesting. I wonder if this is this considered shielding stance or striking stance? Anyway, starting with the current Summon Showcase, new non-Gala adventurers and dragons will also appear in Gala Dragalia. So they basically confirm it. So in the Gala Regalia, from now on, there's going to be non-Gala adventures and dragons. Gala Leaf will only appear during Gala Regalia, so he's only going to be here when Galas are here. But Radiant Xuanzang, Zhu Bajie, Xiao Wujing, and Tieshan Gongshu will continue to appear in future summon showcases. So they're being added to the permanent summoning pool. They're not only going to be around during Galas, if there was any confusion over that. Also, Gala Dragalia was previously only available once every 2 months, but going forward, they'll be held at irregular intervals. Oh, I don't know. This is the one I'm not sure how to feel about, because I can't imagine this being that good for players. So let me give my thought process, and then you'll probably give me a more optimistic take in the comments, which I'm looking forward to reading about. But here's my thing. The regular frequency, from a monetization standpoint, I think maybe led to people saving up in a predictable cadence so that they would have a lot of resources to summon on galas, knowing that they'd come out every other month or every month. With the irregular frequency, the only way I could see this helping with their revenue would be to put the galas at times when there's like seasonal banners or there's other things that are going to tap you out as far as your free resources. Because otherwise, I see it as being more profitable to just have this in regular intervals. You know, why wouldn't you want to have a really good banner every month to have some good revenue from, right? So to me, the fact that they would prefer irregular versus regular kind of makes me think that from a monetization standpoint, the sequence is better for them in the irregular world, which makes me think that they're maybe going to bookend galas with like seasonals or something like that. And also, because they're irregular, like the reason I think they would have to go that far to make money off of this is because if they're irregular, at least for me, and I think there are probably other players in the same boat, I'm going to be very cautious now with spending Wormite, because this could happen at any time. You know, a gala could pop out that I had no idea was coming. And if I knew it was every other month, then during certain periods, I would feel more comfortable spending my Wormite or even spending Diamantium. So I think what they're trying to do here is like, basically they're saying that more people will spend Diamantium to summon on these galas rather than not summon at all for fear of a possible future gala. So it does seem like there's a trade-off in that equation. Like, I'm somebody who, now that I see that these are irregular, I'm probably going to not summon because I never know when a gala could happen. There are also people who are just going to keep summoning like normal, and when a gala happens, they're going to be surprised, and then they're going to buy Diamantium because they have no summoning resources left. So I think what they're banking on is that latter group probably being bigger and outweighing the former group as far as spending money on the game. But yeah, that's kind of weird. I'm really surprised to see this, because I would have expected that regular galas, if anything, like a monthly gala would be better for the game, because then there's always a high value showcase for new players who are starting the game. It just makes it a lot more accessible, in my opinion, to just jump in. You have something good to look forward to by the end of the month that you start playing. That's a good time to spend your resources. With it being irregular, I mean, there are certain times we can probably call or predict. Like, we probably think that, galas will happen around the anniversary, special occasions like that. But otherwise, who knows, And maybe it's because they're running out of characters, like story characters that they want to put on the gala, at least right now. But yeah, I'm really curious about how this shakes out. I would love to hear your take, particularly any contrarian takes to my own. But that was just my first reaction to it. Like, it could end up being fine. And I will say, having all the other characters on there, I think it's going to feel pretty nice. So I do like that change. All right, so now they're going to talk about version 1.20.0. So version 1.20.0 was recently released. Regarding the shared skill feature added in version 1.20, there are some skills that can be set as shared skills and others that cannot. This information can be found on the adventure detail screen and in the showcase information. Skills set as shared skills are subject to some changes, such as damage dealt, amount of HP recovered, and the skill gauge requirements for using the skills. Though it varies from skill to skill, the skill gauge requirements can be quite different, with some skills requiring twice the original gauge or more to use. There are also several requirements for sharing skills, so choose the skills you want to unlock carefully. If you're unsure which skills to unlock as shared skills, the skills of adventurers who join during the main campaign can be set as shared skills right away, so try equipping them in the meantime. In addition to being available to purchase in the shop each month, you'll be able to attain a certain amount of elemental tomes which are required in order to unlock shared skills as rewards for events such as the Onslaught events, which start this month. Okay, so confirmation we're going to get tomes from Onslaught events. We knew that we were going to get them from events in general. And also, they kind of confirm here in a manner of wording that we'll get some tomes every month. Each month, you'll be able to obtain a certain amount of elemental tomes. Now, I suppose some months that amount could be 0, so maybe that's reading a little too much to say that we'd at least get some, but I do think we might get at least more than 0 every month, and there's no rush into this in my view. Like, everything's perfectly functional and fine without the system. If you want to support the game and try out some skills and purchase, right now that is your prerogative, and as we'll get into, there was also a generous gift as part of this month in Dragalia Lost. Let's see if there's anything else here. I guess one thing to mention about the skill share that I know now that I didn't earlier in the previous week was it seems like damage dealing skills actually deal 70% of the damage that they normally do. So it's not 50%, which is what I thought it was for both heals and DPS skills. 70% is better than 50%, obviously, so that's pretty good. And the other thing that has become known is that the SP cost on the shared skills is not always the same. It changes depending on who you're sharing them onto. So it's very rare that it changes, but basically for Nefaria, when you share skills onto her, they cost slightly more. And when you share skills onto Hawk, they cost even more than that. And the presumed reason behind this right now is because both of those characters have special force strikes that let them ramp up SP very, very quickly, or charge skills very quickly, in other words. So maybe that's why they felt like they had to balance the skill gauge or total SP cost of shared skills on those characters. But it's a really small thing that I think most players would never even notice or care about. I will say I'm not a fan of these ad hoc rules for certain characters having higher SP costs. I think it just makes it harder to create guide content, and kind of these ad hoc rules make it a lot harder to explain systems like this. But then I have to remind myself that systems like this are probably never intended to be in 90% of the public's view on the game. So most players will just notice oh, this skill charge is kind of slow, or this skill charge is pretty fast, and don't know what SP costs are or how basic combos build up SP in different amounts, that type of stuff. So all this technical stuff that is kind of behind the curtain really matters to somebody like me, and it probably doesn't matter to 90% of people. Anyway, let's continue reading. We also adjusted certain action elements. You'll now be able to dodge certain enemy attacks using the dodge action. You can avoid taking damage from enemy attacks with red action markers using the invulnerability time from skills or shapeshifting, but this can now also be done using the dodge action, which they're referring to rolling here. We've also adjusted the normal attacks and combos for some weapon types. There were a lot of openings in the normal attacks and combos for certain weapon types, but we alleviated that issue a little with these adjustments. Both of these adjustments were made in order to make the action in the game more enjoyable. So let me talk about this. If you haven't seen it, I did a discussion about rolling over on Living Like Logs channel. So if you want to check that out, you can check that out there. It was a companion to a discussion we did on my channel about skill sharing. But basically, the way I feel about how roles have shaken out is I'm perfectly okay with it. I feel like it's something we're going to forget about in a few months, and I was hoping for it to involve a little bit more of a trade-off, but having played more Master Volk than I had at the time of recording, I will admit, I do think you can still get punished on these rolls. I've had experiences where, unless I'm doing 2 rolls consecutively, like there's a small amount of time after the roll that if you don't time it well, you can get hit, and for attacks that aren't as well telegraphed or come out quickly, like let's say the simple dash that High Zodiarch does. If you want to prevent getting knocked down, you could roll to try avoid that dash. I haven't had a lot of success timing it just right, and because of that, I still might get knocked down compared to when I use a skill with a longer iframe duration. So I will say, despite it not being as much of a trade-off centered mechanic as I would have hoped in my dream scenario, I still think it's totally fine. I really think it's not that big of a deal. And also, I do think there are trade-offs more than I would have perceived after seeing some of the memeing that was happening with the rolls. Anyway, I know people are kind of sick of rolls at this point, but it's a fun topic for me. I like getting into stuff like that and just hearing what people have to say about it. Anyway, the changes to basic attacks. So the way those have shaked out is also not that big of a change. I was hoping it would be a little bit more of a change to kind of freshen up how each weapon type feels to play. It looks like swords basically ended up about the same, but it's less bad if you do the 5-hit combo than it used to be. So if you don't know to do a 2 or 3 hit into a 4-strike combo and you're just doing the 5-hit combo, at least you're not hurting yourself as much as you were before. And with the daggers, it looks like basically you just want to do a 5-hit combo. You don't need to worry about any tricky stuff with the 4-strike while you're in the air. For axes, it is a little less satisfying, I have to admit, because you don't get that really nice flip. Not that many characters wanted to throw down a 4-strike midair during that flip, but when you did, it felt so good. So the tiny flip on the axes feels a little bit silly now, and I've seen some people who probably dislike the axe change most out of all these weapon changes. In my opinion, it's probably for the best because a lot of characters, it was suboptimal for them to be doing a 4-strike midair to begin with. And as cool as it is, and like you can reposition yourself, you can do some really cool things with that. I think where axe 4-strikes come into play now is when you're at a distance from the enemy that you can't safely get in. Charge up a 4-strike, you can kind of get them through the furthest range of the 4-strike. Examples that come to mind are like during the Muspelheim attack that Hilda does, where she stands in the middle of the stage and creates a line of flames. Well, your 4-strike can actually reach her as an axe. You just have to be careful that you don't walk into the flames. But there are times when you can kind of retreat and still get in some damage. So I still think it has a purpose, and the axe 4-strike is still so good in wave-based content, so maybe it'll also play a role in Onslaught. Let's continue reading since I think we're going to get some more hints at the Onslaught mode. We also reduce the damage for attacks the bosses use immediately after the start of the quest in Advanced Dragon Trials. This may change the strategy for some adventurers, but we hope this adjustment will make it easier for more people to challenge these quests. This one I'm a little sad about. Honestly, again, I feel like it's not that big a deal, but there are people out there who really went in, like all in on these characters that rely on low HP mechanics, and if you're in that situation, there are ways around it. You know, you can skill share a defense reduction skill onto your characters, but it's one extra hoop or hurdle to overcome, so it's a little unfortunate for those types of characters, but I trust that they say that it's going to make it easier for more people to challenge these quests. I think there are still a lot of people who haven't challenged the High Dragon quests, and when you enter a quest and just immediately die, there's probably no thing that could put you off doing a quest more than something like that, because it's really hard to tell what you even did wrong. I mean, now that there's a royal regiment, at least they sort of tell you, like, for your first time, you know, you might want to get that glorious Tempest Wormprint. If that weren't there, like, you might not even know that Wormprint exists just playing the game from start to High Dragon Trials. So I think it's a change for the best. I will say, like, some of the trials, this mattered more than others. I wouldn't have minded if, like, Hybernilda still had a pretty high one. Feels kind of fitting, and it would also work pretty well with Fjorm. The other trials, maybe on the higher difficulties, it wouldn't have been too bad to keep it fairly high, so you could still get the last boost type triggers. But that's kind of all I have to say about that. It is unfortunate for players who that was their die-hard and only strategy. Having said that, I think that there are enough workarounds, and it's probably a net positive or a net neutral. So this month's schedule, the first of a new event type Onslaught events will start after the Time Worn Torment raid event ends. These events will center around solo play and quests where you must defeat tons of enemies. In addition to enjoying a story that focuses on the adventurers, there are also quests where you must fight while shapeshifted. Very, very strange. Very strange. Fighting while shapeshifted in an entire quest is something you don't hear very often. Couple things that come to mind, in the story mode, there were actually obstacles that you can only destroy while shapeshifted, so perhaps they could bring back some of those. And particularly if this is like a labyrinth-like mode, where you're searching down enemies, walking down corridors, like blocking those passages actually becomes more relevant. And maybe there's even like a time component, like you want to try to get a good time. Hopefully not comparative in nature, but just your best time for yourself. That would probably be preferred. But if they did it right, it's been a while since Time Attack, and they're not introducing a lot of fights at the same time. So we'll see. We'll see. I should probably knock on wood right now. But anyway, the solo play, quest where you must defeat tons of enemies, story that focuses on the adventurers. It's all still pretty vague, but I have a feeling we're going to know more when Time Worn Torment ends, obviously. And let's check, how long does Time Worn Torment last? Until June 12th. So if I had to guess, I would say we're going to get this right on the 13th, and it will last until maybe the 25th, like a 12-day event since it's something new. And maybe less than that, but roughly around that time. Then in late June, the main campaign will be updated with the addition of Chapter 14. The Prince and friends advance on the capital, Sol Alberia, and aim to take it back. In Chapter 14, you'll be able to enter Sol Alberia, which is a new map. Loving the map here, and it was pointed out to me that this was shown in the 1.5 year anniversary digest, which I do remember now that it's been said, but when I first saw this, and I was reading about the Onslaught events, I was hoping that some of these maps would get used in the Onslaught event, but perhaps there'll be some overlap there. But this looks really cool as a map. I wish there's so many good maps, and this is a very, maybe you could say insignificant cosmetic feature, but sometimes, like, I wish you could just fight bosses on different maps. It would actually make the battles more fun, considering how many times you have to battle some of these endgame bosses. The thing is, it changes the properties a little bit, right? Because the size of the arenas is different, and there's little nooks and crannies on certain arenas. Like there's these little things that jut out in the Augieto arenas for Volk is the one I'm thinking of. There's like these little nooks that kind of stick out when you're hugging the wall and running with your squall. But like, imagine if you could just fight Volk on the beach and, you just deal with the consequences of it being a different arena. Maybe because it's a smaller arena, everything's just totally covered in resentment or something. But, it's such a weird change, but like, that would be kind of funny to me and kind of enjoyable, because I really do like to see some of those backgrounds that we only see very rarely in certain void battles or in quests in like the story, for instance. There are some really good maps, and I know there's probably a lot of effort put into them. So like, if I could fight Volk and just repeatedly grind and make it so it's a different map every time, that would be kind of fun, in my view. As for Chapter 14 itself, a certain adventure will join your roster when you clear Chapter 14. There will be big story developments in this chapter, so please play through Chapter 13 to get ready for it. So people have it on Zethia right now, from what I've seen. Some people think it could be a Leaf as well. I really don't know who it's going to be. I think it could be a surprise. It might even be like Harl. One of the things that you may notice with the free story characters is that I believe at this point we have almost all of the weapon types represented, right? So Yuden is a sword, Ellie is a lance, Ronzel is an axe, Cleo is a healer, a staff, and Luca is a bow. And then we got Alex as a dagger, and we got Lakshi as a blade. That's 7. The last weapon type is a wand, so presumably this new character we get will be a wand. That would be a good way for them to represent all the weapon types in Dragalia Lost and make it so that even if you're brand new to the game, completely free to play, just doing the story, you do get one of each weapon type. As for who that wand could be, I mean, that's one reason why people think it might be Zethia and maybe like future Zethia or alternate Zethia, because the original Zethia that's coded in the game, who is a companion on some very early quests, like the prologue, I think, she was a light healer, but maybe the alternate Zethia is a wand, perhaps. It feels like a fitting weapon type for her, and so that's why players think that she might be the pick. I could also see Harl using a wand, and it does seem like his machinations are not necessarily in line or in sync with Mursayati completely, so I could see that happening. Other than that, it might be somebody out of left field that gets introduced in that chapter. You never know. Like, when Alex first came out, she had been introduced. There was some groundwork beforehand, but not a lot. We got a lot of exposition about her in the chapter she came out in, and it was a pretty big shock to actually get a new character after not getting one in Chapter 6, not getting one in Chapter 7, which released after the launch. So who knows who we're going to get, but I'm really pumped about this. We're going to actually be in Seoul, Alberia. The maps are going to be sweet. I might have to do a full reaction to this, and I've been trying to vary up my content a little bit more as far as how I approach story. Sometimes it just takes too long to go through the story in one video, and it's not as productive to talk through the story as it happens because you've already read it. What I'm thinking I'll do with this is play through it once on normal myself, and then I'll show off some of the cool maps on hard or very hard while I talk about my impressions from the chapter. So I'm going to continue trying mixing that up and experimenting, but Chapter 14 is going to be so hype. Alright, so next up we have the Augieto Uprising. Volk's Wrath Master was released on May 25th. With the drop rewards, you can now enhance 6-star weapons to a new tier. Additionally, the material that drops in Master difficulty has been added to the weekly bonus for Volk's Wrath experts. Also, a new boss, a Yaha and a Toha, will be added to the Augieto Uprising at the end of this month. Since this boss is actually 2 characters, they have some unique movements. I hope you're looking forward to it. So we've seen these twins, the twin Augieto, since the digest 1.5 year anniversary, and presumably they're going to be flame element, and we're going to want to bring water characters. Very curious. There's speculation, of course, are they going to fuse? How is their Augieto form going to work? There are also lots of butterflies in the artwork, which perhaps is an indication of what they might transform into. But yeah, I really don't know if this is a Yaha and this is a Toha, but we'll find out once they're released. And as was pointed out to me, there are lots of characters they could sort of foil, or at least a couple characters. So one is potentially just the prince, Yuden, because the prince himself is a twin with Zethia, or maybe they could also be sort of a counterpart or foil to Lakshi and Mascula because of their dual nature. So we'll wait and see what happens with that. But like I said, I think this event, the Onslaught event, will end maybe like the 25th, and then we might get the story chapter on the 26th, and then maybe we'll get this new thing, this new Augieto battle, like the day after the last weekly reset of the month. Okay, we're almost at the end here. Future updates. The next update is scheduled for the end of June. The update will include an increase to the number of team slots. Yes, we've been needing that, and reductions to the space requirements for the application. Keep an eye on your notifications for more details in the future. So, not mentioning Encyclopedia, not mentioning the weapon system rework, I don't think that necessarily means they're not happening. I think that it's more that this is what is for sure happening in June. There's a possibility the other things may not make it to June. And there's been some recent interviews with Director Okada where they're pretty transparent about stuff like this. Like, there are features they've wanted to add that, due to the circumstances in the world right now, just due to the nature of game development in general, they weren't able to add. Like, one of the things that he called out in his recent interview was actually talking about the defensive battles from Fire Emblem and saying he wanted an auto battle feature for it being solo only, but or for it being playable in solo, but they just weren't able to get it out in time. So frankly, I think that that's why we're not hearing about the encyclopedia and the weapon rework. Those are potentially much more time consuming, especially the latter. So hopefully we'll get them. I don't think it's a guarantee. We're not hearing anything about mana spirals this month either, which we may get as a surprise ahead of the new Augieto battle. But I think that for the most part, they're able to share with us here what the concrete plans are. And there are some things that they're just not going to be able to share. Another thing that came out of that interview, which I'll briefly mention, is they're aware that we're struggling with rainbow orbs. So players had requested a master elemental ruins, and Okada said that there's no immediate plans for that, but they'll consider it. But they'll also just consider more ways for us to get rainbow orbs in the future. So in conclusion, I know that balance adjustments and new features change the play environment greatly, but I hope you'll try lots of different things and continue to enjoy playing Dragalia Lost. I think I will, Okada, I think I will. We're giving all players the following items this month. We hope you'll use them to try unlocking shared skills. Let's go, we're getting 5 of every tome. This is going to be so fun to play around with, and if you want to be optimal, you can always be conservative with these. You don't have to use them right away. You can use your free characters from the story. If you want to play around, honestly, this might be a good time to go for it. There's not a lot known about this yet. I mean, there's some standouts. Karina is a really big standout. Like, there's some strategies that pre-made groups have made to work very effectively. It looks like Xiao Wujing is also a really good standout. But with them giving us 5, it's kind of like the perfect amount to whet your appetite, where a lot of the best skills that you might want to share might cost, 6, 7. So you might want to buy a little diamantium to get that skill you really want, but they put you a nice amount of the way there. And if you don't want to make any purchase, you could always save these, or you could look at skills that cost 5 or less. I'll probably get more into shared skills. It's still so early. I don't think I can really make a formal guide on them, but I might make a separate video talking about my picks for each of these tomes that we've gotten, since I don't think I'm going to necessarily save all of them. I just kind of want to experiment with this. I'm willing to do that. I think we'll get more elemental tomes in the future, and frankly, I don't have that many adventurers at 50 nodes already to select from, nor that much Eldwater to just throw around for the sake of a shared skill. So that will be a large player in what I decide to pick. But anyway, everyone, that is going to do it for this video. We've gone through this month in Dragalia Lost at length. Hope you're looking forward to everything that June has to offer. Let me know what you're most excited about in the comments below, and otherwise, that is going to do it for today. So, thank you as always for watching, take care, and I'll see you next time.